Right now, somewhere near you, there is a shelf of little bottles that can change how your mind works. A pill for pain, a drink to relax, a cup of coffee to wake you up. We treat it as a completely normal, unremarkable fact of being human. So here is something that should genuinely disturb you. The search for those substances is older than farming, older than writing, older than the wheel. It is one of the oldest things our species has ever done, and it did not begin in a laboratory or a pharmacy or a field. It began in a cave with a person holding a plant they did not understand. In a dry cave in the mountains of southern Peru, archaeologists found a small leather bundle. It was over 1,000 years old, and it had been carefully tied shut. When they opened it, they found a kit. Pouches, carved bones, hidden compartments, and when they tested what was inside, the results were astonishing. That single bundle held traces of at least 5 different mind-altering plants. This wasn't one lucky plant, stumbled upon by accident. This was a curated collection carried by someone who knew exactly what each one did. Deliberate, specialized, and clearly the product of a very long tradition, which means the knowledge inside that bundle was already ancient when it was buried. So stop and think about that for a moment. These people had no chemistry, no microscopes, no written language to record a single note. The plants around them numbered in the thousands, and most looked almost identical. Some would feed you, some would heal you, and some would kill you before sundown. So here is a question that flips everything you've been told about ancient humans. How did they possibly know which was which? How do you map the invisible chemistry of an entire planet with no science at all? That explanation is coming, and it is far stranger than a lucky guess. To understand the answer, imagine you are a forager 100,000 years ago. Your entire pharmacy is the landscape around you. There are no labels, no instructions, no one to ask. There's only the plant, your body, and the terrible gap between them. To learn what a plant did, someone at some point had to be the first to taste it. Picture that person, chewing an unknown leaf, not knowing what would happen next. Sometimes nothing happened, sometimes they were healed, and sometimes they simply never woke up. Every safe remedy we have inherited was paid for, once, by someone who died finding it. But there was another outcome, rarer and stranger than healing or death. Sometimes the person chewed the leaf, and the world around them began to change. The colors brightened, the shadows moved, voices seemed to whisper from the trees. To you and me, that is a chemical reaction in the brain, but to a human with no concept of chemistry, it was something else entirely. It felt like a door had opened into another world. And this is where the story takes a genuinely disturbing turn. Because that door did not just change the person who walked through it. Some scientists believe it may have changed our entire species, that a plant, chewed by a curious human, helped shape the way all of us think today. To see how, we have to follow one researcher who traced this back to the very beginning. Her name is Elisa Guerra-Doce, a professor of prehistory in Spain. And she did something nobody had done properly before. She gathered the physical evidence from all over the world into one single picture. This isn't a guess and it isn't a myth. It is residue pulled from the ground, stained teeth, burnt seeds, sealed jars, painted walls, and what she found rewrote the timeline completely. This behavior wasn't a modern vice of bored, comfortable cities. It stretched back into deep prehistory across nearly every culture on Earth. But here is the thing we always forget about our ancestors. Guerra-Doce noticed something crucial about where all this evidence was found. It wasn't in the rubbish heaps where people throw away their entertainment. It was in tombs, in graves, in sacred ceremonial places, always everywhere connected with ritual. Because here is the strangest twist of the whole story. And it is not what you think. For our ancestors, this was almost never about pleasure. It was not an escape. It was not a party. It was not fun. It was one of the most serious and sacred things a human being could do. And in about 2 minutes, I'm going to show you why that changes everything. To an ancient mind, a plant that could show you visions was not a toy. It was a doorway, a way to speak to the dead, the gods, the spirit world, and a doorway that powerful could not be left open for anyone to wander through. So in culture after culture, this task fell to one trusted person, the shaman, the healer, the one sent to cross over and come back. They would enter a trance, travel to another realm, and return with something, a cure, a warning, a message from the ancestors themselves. The whole community depended on that journey being done right. Now hold that image against the way we live today. We often take these same substances alone, casually, to escape a dull afternoon. They took them rarely, together, wrapped in ceremony, to touch the sacred. In a very real sense, our ancestors treated these plants with more respect than we do, and they did it for a reason we are only now beginning to understand. Because of what one of these experiences does to a mind with no science in it. You chew a plant, and suddenly, you see beings of light. You feel yourself leave your body. You feel like you die and are reborn. To someone with no biology, no chemistry, no other explanation, what else could this be except proof of another world beyond this one? Some scholars argue that this experience helped give birth to religion itself, that our ideas of a soul, a spirit realm, an afterlife may have been shaped in part by these overwhelming ancient visions. Now, this is a debated theory, not a settled fact, and honesty matters here. We cannot climb inside a Stone Age mind to check what it saw, but stand in front of the evidence, and it becomes very hard not to wonder, did a plant, chewed in a cave, help teach humanity how to imagine heaven? If that thought just sent a chill through you, take a second and hit like, it genuinely helps. Let that sit for a moment. A person, tens of thousands of years ago, alone in the dark, meeting something vast. No words for it, no science for it, only awe, and the quiet, unshakable certainty that they had seen behind the curtain of the world. But I promised you honesty, so here is the other edge of the blade. These discoveries were never purely gifts. The same plant that healed could also harm. The same door could trap you inside it. The poppy that softened unbearable pain could also chain a person to itself. The line between medicine and poison was always paper thin. And here is the thing we always forget. Our ancestors knew that danger intimately. It is exactly why they fenced these plants off with so much ceremony. The ritual, the shaman, the sacred rules, those were not decoration. They were a control system built to survive something powerful and risky. You did not take these plants whenever you felt like it. You took them at the right time in the right place with the right guide. Like the rules were not there to limit the experience. The rules were there to keep it from destroying you. Which brings us back to the question I left open near the start. With no science at all, how did they ever learn which plant was which? And the answer is a mix of courage, patience, and heartbreak. Part of it was watching the animals. A goat that nibbles a strange shrub and starts to stagger is information. A bird that returns again and again to one specific berry is a clue worth keeping. Foragers were the most patient observers of nature who have ever lived. Part of it was slow, careful, generational trial and error. One person tries a sliver, they watch, they remember, they pass it on. Knowledge was built up drop by drop across hundreds of human lifetimes. And part of it, we have to admit, was simply paid for in death. For every plant that became a sacred medicine, others killed the first to try them. Those people left no names, no monuments, no record at all. But their mistakes became the map that kept everyone after them alive. And now we reach the most astonishing part of all, because none of this knowledge could ever be written down. For almost the entire history of our species, there was no writing. So how do you pass on something as delicate as which plant in which dose for which purpose? The answer is that the knowledge did not live on paper. It lived inside people. It was carried in memory, in song, in story, in ceremony. A single healer might spend an entire lifetime learning it from the healer before them. Every plant, every preparation, every lethal dose, memorized and rehearsed. This was one of the oldest libraries in the world, a library with no books, stored entirely inside living human minds. And every time one of those healers died without passing it on, an entire encyclopedia of hard-won knowledge went dark forever. Some of what those healers knew, modern science is only now rediscovering. They were not primitive. They were the first pharmacologists our species ever produced. And this is where it quietly becomes about you. The next time you swallow a pill for a headache, stop and think about what you are holding. You are standing at the very end of an unimaginably long chain, a chain that runs back through every hospital, every healer, every ceremony, all the way to a nameless person in a forest, chewing a leaf, hoping to survive. Every medicine you have ever taken has ancient ancestors, found by people who had no idea what a molecule was, but who understood the living world around them with a depth we have almost lost. Right now, as you watch this, that same restless curiosity is still inside you. It is the reason you reach for a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or a pill. You are not doing something new. You are continuing the oldest experiment there is, the impulse that made an ancient human taste an unknown leaf is the exact same impulse that built every pharmacy on Earth. It healed us, it endangered us, it may even have helped us imagine our gods, and it never for one moment left us. We like to imagine our ancestors as simple, frightened, primitive things, but they mapped the hidden chemistry of an entire planet by hand in the dark. They found the plants that heal, the plants that kill, and the plants that reveal. And they treated that last group with a reverence we have arguably thrown away. They did not see these plants as a way to escape their lives. They saw them as a bridge, or to the dead, to the divine, to the truth, to the enormous questions that we are, all of us, still asking tonight. What happens when we die? Whether anything waits on the other side, whether there is more to this world than the thin slice our eyes can see. They went looking for the answer in the plants growing at their feet. So let's go back to that leather bundle in that cave in Peru. 5 sacred plants tied carefully together, buried with someone over 1,000 years ago. Think about what that bundle really is. It is not a stash. It is not a habit. It is not an indulgence. It is a library, a medicine cabinet, and a set of keys to another world. Every plant inside it was known, tested, understood, and respected. It was carried by a person whose entire role was to hold that knowledge for everyone else, someone who stood quite literally at the border between the living and the dead, and who used these plants not to run from reality, but to explore it. That impulse to ask what lies just beyond what we can see is one of the most human things there has ever been. It is written in stained teeth and buried seeds and painted cave walls. It is written in a very real sense in bone. So the next time you reach for that little bottle on the shelf, the pill for the pain, the drink to relax, the cup to wake you up, run your thumb over it and remember what it really is. It is not a modern convenience, and it is not a modern weakness. It is the far end of a chain that stretches back 100,000 years, back to a single person in a cave holding a plant they did not yet understand, and deciding despite every danger that they simply had to know. That person never learned what a molecule was. They never saw a laboratory or a pharmacy or a printed page, but they asked the same question you are asking in some quiet way right now. What is out there? What is inside us? What lies just beyond the veil? They just went looking for the answer in the forest instead of the internet. And the courage it took to taste that first unknown leaf is the reason you can safely swallow a pill today without a second thought. We are the inheritors of the bravest and most dangerous curiosity in history. Every one of those first experiments was a gamble with a human life, and the ones who survived handed their discoveries silently to us. So we owe them something we almost never give them, not fear, not mockery, but respect, for mapping a world they could not measure and surviving it long enough to teach us. The bottles on your shelf are the safe, tame descendants of their wildest questions, and the curiosity that filled that ancient bundle is the same curiosity that fills you. It is quietly the thing that makes you human. It always has been. So tell me in the comments, do you think that curiosity made us wiser or just luckier? Sit with that question for a moment before you answer it. And if you want more of the hidden history that made you who you are, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.